people were that we would meet. They all had worked 25, 30, 35 years. And I always thought, there's something wrong with these guys. There must be a bunch of losers who are not able to get a job, which is why they're here for so long. Over the years, as time passed by and we had younger employees joining us, and one had to do the new employee orientations, the first thing I would tell them is, before you think I'm here by choice, I'm not a loser.
Traditionally, in entrepreneurship, we teach people go out and search for opportunities and then come back and build solutions. Here is a approach that 3M mastered, which says, here are some nice technology solutions. Now let's go look for problems.
So it's more a culture of creativity, collaboration, letting people ideate. Moment you're too comfortable in an assignment, you're not learning.
Yeah.
So when you should move, when your learning opportunity is reducing dramatically.
One leadership mistake you think every professional must make at least once?
Not spending enough time listening.
What's the first ingredient, according to you, in building a successful tech platform?
Always people. It's always, you can get nothing done without the people.
If creativity is the fuel, what's that engine?
Curiosity.
What builds stronger teams, trust or talent?
It starts with trust.
You have spoken of the value of reverse mentoring. Can you share a moment when someone younger taught you something that truly shifted your perspective? Welcome to another episode of Leadership Unplugged. As Great Lakes celebrates its 20th year, we are talking and reaching out to the leaders from a variety of sectors to learn about their experiences and what our students can take away from their experiences. In this series today, we're very lucky to have Mr. Amit Laroya, who spent his entire career at a company which is famed for innovation, 3M. Welcome, Mr. Amit.
Thank you, Raj, and congratulations to Great Lakes for the 20 years.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure having you. Before we start off asking any questions, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to landing up at 3M.
Well, I started my career actually with Asian Paints, not with 3M. Straight out of college, I did my MBA from XLRI, and I spent the first 2 years at A Paints. And probably some of the most interesting time of my career. It's like, you tend to remember your first job in your first few years of your life much more vividly than the last few, frankly. So that's how I started my career. And then one day I saw an ad in the newspaper saying 3M's in the country and they wanted a telecom engineer. I was not a telecom engineer. I'd done my MBA and my economic honors. And I wrote a letter those days. There was no email, telling them that I'm interested. One had heard about 3M, in business school. And I said, they were coming into India at that point in time. And I said, if you want an opportunity, I'd like to meet you. So that's how my career started at 3M.
XLRI is kind of popular for producing CHROs and people largely in the HR space. You kind of started off in sales, you moved to, heading functions, the more CEO roles. So is there any reason you drifted towards that, or you?
Actually, XLRI has two different paths. There's a 2-year program in human resource management.
Yeah.
And a 2-year program in regular MBA with sales, marketing, finance.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did the 2-year program in sales in marketing and finance.
Okay.
So I was never really keen on the CHRO space.
Okay. That's wonderful. So is 3M something like a dream for you when you applied to it, or was it?
Well, it was, I guess it was a dream. It's kind of funny in a way because, Asian Paints taught me a lot. And I was traveling, I was in sales, frontline sales, and I was traveling around smaller cities and in fact villages in UP, which I had never been to in my life. So that taught me a lot. But after 2 years of doing that, I realized that it's a very well-oiled machine. And if I'm, whether I'm there or not there, the company was really well positioned and well oiled in the systems and processes. And then I saw that in 3M, and one had heard about 3M. So in fact, when I did get the offer from 3M, my father was very unhappy with me at that point of time because he had no idea what 3M was. And I think the biggest challenge for him was to go around telling people, what is 3M company? Why has he left Asian Paints and joined a company called 3M? So I think it took him 6-9 months to get over the fact that I was leaving Asian Paints and joining this unknown company called 3M.
Yeah. It's very atypical, at least these days, among business school graduates to take up sales jobs. In fact, most campuses struggle to convince students it's actually is a great place to start, which is very different from 30, 40 years ago because most of the jobs on campus, students would fight to get interesting sales jobs. And we heard stories that people who start in sales end up in the CEO's office and things like that. But what attracted you towards sales? Is it you knew it even before you went there? Or
No, I had no idea of. I had never worked in my life before I joined my MBA program, and I think I guess got lucky because on campus you had two job offers and placement. So I got, I think it was the day one or something. I got ICI Paints, and by afternoon I had Asian Paints. I had to choose one of them, and I was wondering whether I looked like a painter. Why are these paint companies after me? And I think I had some pretty good advice. One of my senior colleagues had come down from ICI Paints gave me some very good guidance. He said, if you join ICI Paints, your career path in sales will really be commercial. It's not really sales. While in Asian Paints, they will take you into sales and you learn and grind your way out. And it'll be much tougher, but much more interesting. And it really worked out well for me. So I have to thank that person for the guidance. It wasn't really my choice. But it really worked out well because, when you start your career in sales, you tend to know how to connect with customers. And subsequently, you realize that the guidance you would give, whether you're in marketing or in product management or, as you go on to general management, you have done the beat and you are able to give practical guidance, practical advice to your colleagues. Otherwise, in most organizations, there is this rift between sales and head office and marketing people saying, sales guys don't know what they're doing. The marketing guys say, that's what the marketing guys say. And sometimes the salespeople say that the marketing guys don't give practical sort of marketing tools or guidance to them. So I think that stood me in really, really good stead.
Okay.
So small little things I just remembered, since you asked me, you know, when you're traveling around smaller villages of Uttar Pradesh, which I had never done in my life, I'd worked in, lived in large cities, and we would enter any village or any town over 5,000 people, and the shops were typically the paint shops are typically also small shops which are multi shops. There were paint shops, hardware, carrying agricultural products because it's a small village. They're not specialized paint shops. Invariably, the person managing the shop was also living either upstairs or on the back of the shop with the children.
Okay.
So I started keeping a little black book because I had to meet some 3,000 of these people. I had no idea what the names were. And the kids were always playing around. So I would actually keep a black book. I would write down the name of the kids. And before I entered, I would kind of, ask the person about the family. And you realize the power of building relationships, even at a very basic level. If you can build relationships at a very early age, it stands you in good stead all your life. It doesn't matter what job you are. Even if you're a CEO of a company and your relationship building with your end customer becomes one of the most critical parts of your life. So I had that very early lesson, I would say.
Very interesting because as I listen to you, I'm reminded of a conversation with this person who started Nalli Silks, a famous silk shop. And he was about 72 years or so when I had this listen to him. And he was telling me that when he started selling silk saris, he would come from Kanchipuram to Chennai and he would have his little diary, he'd visit homes and he would write down about the family after the visit.
Right.
And he would know exactly which year, approximately the year in which the family is going to have marriages. And he would go in and suggest things and all that. And over a period, he said he knew something like 35,000, 40,000 families of Chennai. And you'd know almost everyone who's going to have good things. Your thoughts just triggered that. My question on the other side is now with all the CRMs and systems in place, how do you see this comparison? I mean, I think these are rock solid systems that have worked vis-a-vis.
Yeah, I think having a process in place, so rather than let's say if somebody had a diary like the example you gave, or that I had a black book that I would carry, the CRM replaces the book.
Yeah.
Right? But you can't replace the human touch. You can't replace the relationship that you have, that you're able to build, or connection you're able to build with that person. At the end of the day, people do buy on relationships.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to provide a good solution and a product that makes sense for them. but people buy, especially industrial products, they buy on relationships. FMCG, consumer products, slightly different. You buy on different parameters. But industrial companies, industrial products are bought on relationships.
Okay.
And you can't build a relationship through a CRM process. So CRM process, I would say, replaces the black book. It becomes a more well-defined process, put it that way. But it's not a replacement of your ability to build a bond or a rapport with somebody.
That's
We're human beings. So I think in all this buzz going around in the world on AI and all that, we forget we ultimately we're human beings. And we need to make those connections.
Okay. So the tools are being replaced, but not the person
Tools
really.
definitely need to be replaced.
Yeah. Very interesting. So apart from building relationships, your early years as a sales executive, traveling and interacting, what are a couple of key lessons that a good salesperson learns in the first 4-5 years of their career that holds them, or shapes them for, larger roles, managerial roles, and leadership roles in the future?
So I think, one, I talked about building relationships. The other one is the discipline. As a salesperson, you have a beat system, right? Which you're supposed to follow. The number of calls you make, and you now use CRM processes to figure out, what's the dollar value or rupee value per sales call you're going to make, and those kinds of metrics. But it's come down to a discipline of doing or following a certain route, following it a certain number of times, meeting certain customers, at some regular frequency at intervals. So discipline becomes a very important part, I think, of something that stands you in good stead, right through your career journey.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that sort of springs to my mind right now.
Okay.
That's very, very important.
Yeah. As I was reading through your profile, one of the things that struck me today, and I think it's very useful for our kids in college, is
I'm not sure they want to be referred to as kids.
Yeah, they wouldn't like it, but I would. I keep telling them that they have to grow up for me to call them adults. They're still trying. So a lot of them today keep dropping jobs at the speed at which we drop hats. I mean, we have kids who, or let me call them grown-ups. The grown-ups, actually, the young adults of today, they keep changing jobs often. And one thing that struck me is, you stayed on, you grew in the organization to become a board member. So right from the earliest roles, you steadily stayed, and 3 decades at an organization. So what's the advice you would give to a student who's graduating today on how to look at their careers in terms of staying or moving? What should be the reason to move?
When I joined 3M, most people that we would meet would be in the 25, they all had worked 25, 30, 35 years. Okay. And I always thought, there's something wrong with these guys. They must be a bunch of losers who are not able to get a job, which is why they're here for so long. Okay, that was my reaction. Over the years, as time passed by, and we had, younger employees joining us, and one had to do the new employee orientations. The first thing I would tell them is, before you think I'm here by choice, I'm not a loser. Okay. So, but that apart, I think the reason why I stayed anyway, there are actually 2 or 3 reasons. The first and foremost is it's a very ethical organization. It's an organization that has never asked me to do anything wrong. I have lost or let go millions of dollars of an opportunity or sales, knowing that it's an unethical way to get the business. No one ever questioned me, right? If that's what I did. So I think working in an organization which matches your ethics is very, very critical. So that becomes, I think, probably the single most factor that makes you stay in an organization. The second thing, I guess, is that this organization gave a lot of opportunity for growth. And that's possible in organizations which have so many different product lines like 3M has. As you know, it has more than 60,000 products across the world. So you have an opportunity to not get bored in any particular area, which means you have opportunity to learn about all kinds of business models, from a healthcare business model to a consumer business model to a industrial marketing business model. You have opportunity to do all those things. You can also join functional groups if you want to. And then you have the geographic opportunity of working across countries. So when you have that kind of I would say an expanse of opportunity, while still, working or having the, I would say the comfort level of working in an organization that's ethical, it just doesn't make sense. Didn't make any sense to move. And I guess the third thing is that by nature, people in 3M are very collaborative. And there's a certain culture of the organization which breeds a very nice collaborative culture where people are very helpful to each other. It doesn't matter, which business or which division or department or country you come from. So all this makes it a very I would say a family kind of an organization in some ways.
Okay.
And and each time I, let's say, got bored with a particular assignment, I had the opportunity to move to something new.
Oh.
So it just happened. I didn't plan it that way, and I didn't think I would stay that long.
So as you were making these progressive moves, growth, experiencing growth, were there any career challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them? Even though you're staying in the same company,
Right.
obviously you must have had challenges that you had to surmount. So can you give us like one or two situations where you felt like, hey, this is getting challenging, but I must keep at it? And
Clearly, there have been a lot of challenges through the journey, and there's been a lot of learning opportunity. So, when you progress from being a salesperson, and one of the first career moves you make in a company like 3M is you become a division leader. So you're in charge of one division. We have multiple divisions. We're in charge of one division in one particular country. You have to move from being a salesperson to learning how to manage the profit and loss of that division. So there's a financial learning that you have to sort of learn.
oh,
So I think that's a big step up. The second step up is now you're managing people. And managing people, even if they're one or two or five people, it's a big change in terms of your individual capacity as a salesperson.
okay.
So as a salesperson, you're working as an individual person. You're responsible for yourself. The moment you're handling a team, you're responsible for the team.
Yeah.
So that's a learning opportunity or a learning curve for any person moving up their career. So this financial acumen is the second piece I
Yeah.
talked about. And as you move up and you become, let's say, a larger business group leader, could be maybe in the same country, you're now managing multiple divisions, multiple people, and a lot more strategic orientation is required in terms of how you allocate resources between businesses or between divisions.
Interesting.
So their resource allocation becomes a very key part.
Okay.
Mapping your resources to the best opportunity that's available in the market.
Yeah.
And also, working out the directions from head office saying, do this, do that.
Yeah.
And the different division leaders, global division leaders, but you have to manage that aspiration as well as manage what's true for your particular country or your environment and context that you're going. Then you progress your career, and let's say you become a managing director for a country. You are now not only doing business and managing the whole team, but you're also the brand ambassador of your company in that country. You are spending a lot of time doing external interface, including meeting the heads of government, heads of chambers of commerce in that country. So your role changes quite a bit. So you learn a lot of external interface and management of external bodies versus just being more internally focused.
Okay.
And I think as you move up and become, let's say you take up a global assignment or you take up a regional assignment, you have now to manage cross-cultural issues across countries, across parameters, and getting work done out of people who have different styles of working, of course. And how do you adapt to that style? How do you not, how do you adapt to each country's style and yet remain focused on the task at hand? So I think there's a learning opportunity in each of these. And each one becomes a challenge. And as you grow through your career, if you don't adapt and evolve, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah. Two questions pop up in my head as I listen to you speak. First thing is, should you prepare for the next role and then take the role, or should you take the role and then prepare for it?
I think from an advice standpoint, I can only tell people, and I've always told this, first do your job well. Do your current job well. If you are constantly focused on your next job, which I find many people are, you will never spend energy on doing your current job. You'll be spending time trying to figure out how to impress your boss, how to get to the next job. Now, that doesn't mean you put your head down and do your current job only well. You've got to be smart about it. So you have to allocate some time to showcase the work you're doing. So it doesn't exactly work, in the Gandhian philosophy of doing your current job and forget everything else. You have to do your current job well. So I would say 90+% time should be devoted to current job. But then spending some time to showcase your capability of taking up additional assignments. So one good way to do that is putting your hand up and saying, let me do some projects or assignments outside my current job.
Oh,
That, it does two things for you. One, your learning opportunity increases.
yeah.
Secondly, it gives a clear indication to the management that here's an individual person who is willing to take on additional responsibility, even without being asked
Yeah.
to do so. So you have to move out of your comfort zone. And I think, to me, that's the real reason why people should move. Moment you're too comfortable in an assignment, you're not learning.
Yeah.
So when you should move, when your learning opportunity is reducing dramatically.
Okay.
It's always a diminishing, increasing and then diminishing curve.
Yeah.
It changes on the task, it changes the individual person. So it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. It just depends on how complex the task is or how easy it is for a particular individual person.
Yeah.
But I think learning opportunity is what should be the decision criteria, according to me, when people should take a decision to move.
You mentioned about managing cross-cultural teams. I'm sure you have enough anecdotes on how to do this, but anything that you can share with us on, which you found for you, an humorous or interesting situation?
Well, several. Actually, I came back to India in about, I think it was late 2000s, about 2011, 12. And around that time, there was a lot of this Jugaad book had come out, and there's a lot of Jugaad culture in India. And I think it's been misused to a large extent in India, to the extent that it's become a joke, according to me. And there are a lot of shortcuts that people do. So my famous example, I'll come back to cultural differences, is that if you work in India, you have the opportunity to have an office boy trying to give you a cup of tea, right? Which is not the case in other countries. You get up and take your own tea.
Yeah.
But very often the office boy will come every morning. One day he comes with a cup of green tea, next day with mint tea, third day with extra sugar, fourth day with, black tea, fifth day with extra milk. And you're going to tell the guy, look, I just want tea in the same way. Don't change it every day. But each one is trying to show how smart they are. And I think in the Indian context, we are very intelligent people, but misuse intelligence to a large extent. So we can't execute very well.
Yeah.
As a society, as a people, we don't execute very well. My parallel opposite is my last assignment in Korea. Extreme execution. Unbelievable execution. Okay, and very hierarchical organization. So if you just ask somebody a question, they think, if you are the head of the organization, they think it's a directive. Right? So you got to be really careful of what you ask.
Okay.
You could be just asking, but they think it's a direction. So I'm giving you just a silly example, saying, I go and ask somebody how many channel partners you have, and I just say it's too many. They may just fire half of them tomorrow morning. Okay. So in India, it'll take you for ages to get it done because they'll keep on arguing why they need it. They'll just do it. So we have two extremes of social, let's say, construct. And if you could bring these two together, and you learn as a person, you become cognizant of it. And if you learn and you get them to think differently, both sides, I think we can just be a better society.
Okay. You spent some time building process excellence. You've done some certifications, and these have been popular all around the world. How important are these for young executives to pick up such kind of certifications? Was it more on the job for you? You had to do it, or you would encourage people to actually learn these things, practice them?
I think it's so. For me, it was very interesting because at that point in time in 3M, we had a new CEO, and Six Sigma assignments and especially Master Black Belt assignments were a standard fixed two-year term. And you were picked for the assignment. It was not that you applied for it and got it. And it was really assignments which were career broadening assignments. It's clearly communicated like that. Okay. Why it was interesting for me is that till that time I was, let's say, in a business environment. I probably operated more from my gut and less with process.
Okay.
So that 2-year period where, we set up projects across the organization not only helped me learn very detailed understanding of the non-business functions. Because we did projects in finance, we did projects in human resources, in manufacturing operations. So you get into details of things that you otherwise would not know. You have some broader idea. Even though you're GM, you don't get into each process with that level of detail. But when you specifically do projects in those spaces, or your teams are doing projects in those spaces, you have unbelievable information and data and clarity, and you become a lot more process oriented in your mind.
Okay.
So I think that assignment was able to give me personally a balance between gut feel and process orientation.
Oh.
So I would urge people to do it, especially as they're not that process oriented in life. Some people are. Some people are naturally are good at it, and for them it's very easy to do it. But I think most people who join sales and marketing are not so process oriented. The folks who join production planning or something are typically much more process oriented because they join that role requires that kind of process orientation.
So let me shift into a little bit about 3M as a company. I mean, 3M is always like, as a person who's been teaching entrepreneurship for several years now, it's like the poster child. I start my courses with 3M saying this is the kind of company you want to work with. This is the kind of innovation processes you want to do. So we know the early stages of 3M. It wanted to be something, and then it pivoted, became something. So does that still prevail? I mean, is that so? Tell us something about 3M that we didn't know, as people from the outside.
Well, the innovation engine, so to say, is the heart of the company, right? And it's still very, very much there. I mean, that's the business model. The business model of the company is the innovation engine. Yeah. And the innovation engine comes through various means, various, I would say, characteristics. The part that people probably don't know as well is the fact that there's something called a 3M periodic table. We call it a 3M periodic table. Okay. So this is a table that has different work streams. The work streams could be materials. So we may have technology expertise in ceramic materials, for example. It could be in applications. Okay, so it could be the whole work stream around application. It could be like thermal management could be an application. It could be around AI systems. Using artificial intelligence to do research work, for example, to do experimentation. It could be around processes. Okay, technology platforms like macro replication, for example. Okay. So when we have these 51, it's a mix of 51 different, materials, processes, technologies, applications, and capabilities. Things like sustainable design systems could be capability that the company has. When you bring all this together, that's where the magic happens. Oh. You can generate thousands of products by bringing these capabilities together. Now, obviously, the capability didn't happen overnight. It's taken years to build it. But understand, the capability is of no use unless it's commercialized, right? Unless it's used.
Yeah.
So innovation happens when you do commercialization, not when you do innovation inside your research inside your companies. So then there's a front end of the company, which is our sales organizations, application development engineers, who spend a lot of time on what we call bench to bench, working with the R&D folks in other organizations. Oh. So it's a very well institutionalized process. We work with large organizations, leading companies who are looking at not only current product lines, improvements of maybe current products, but also looking at where these industries are heading 5 to 10 years from now. And these people are feeding back customer voice. Oh, okay. Okay, and they're working with these customers. And there's a corporate research team that is actually working on, again, technologies which are not commercialized today, which may get commercialized 5 to 10 years from now.
Oh, okay. So there's an invention piece.
So the invention piece, the technology piece, some corporate research lab. Oh, okay. Then the divisions have their own research labs. And these are working on today's products, the ones we want to commercialize today. Okay. And then we have dozens of customer technical centers around the world, where we bring in customers. They come and see our technologies and platforms, and they help us generate ideas.
Oh, okay.
A lot of the ideas actually in 3M come from customers. Many times don't come from 3M companies. Because we have technologies and we have these capabilities I talked about, but we don't have that kind of insight into every application that you can think of in the world. So I'll give you an example which I kind of like because I was instrumental in doing this many years ago in India. It was about 28 years ago. 3M had spherical glass spheres. The hollow glass spheres. We had them for decades. We were using them for traffic signs in the old days. Then we didn't know what to do with them for many years. I was talking to a large oil drilling company in India, and they were having challenges of when they do go into offshore platform drilling, they go about a few kilometers into the ocean. And as that drill bit goes inside, they need a lubricant. The lubricant is called mud. Now, after 1 kilometer, the mud itself, the weight of the mud itself, the column of mud itself becomes difficult. Right? So they're wondering how to drill deeper. So we talked to them about using a hollow glass spheres. It took a couple of years of working with that organization. It's become the standard globally, by the way. So customers, we have no idea. I'm not a drilling expert. I have just no idea about drilling or oil and gas industry or whatever. But the fun was to go and talk to them, listen to them, and make connect the dots. And then come back, and then of course get our R&D people involved. And it took time. They did a lot of research. But a lot of the companies today are using 3M hollow glass spheres for mud drilling applications. Then we found a second application where the wall of the well is cemented. So you can add these glass spheres into cement to make it stronger and light. We use the same glass spheres in lightweight management in all automotive plastic parts today for molding parts. So end of the day, we're talking about how to make something lighter and stronger. So the innovation is in finding different ways, and that's why 3M is in so many industries. We sometimes don't start with industry, we start with our technology. And then we try and find applications across. So that's been the more traditional path, I would say. I think now there's a realization you can't only go down that path. So we're going down the other way too, where we have targeted certain industries. And then we're showcasing our technologies and also developing new technologies for those industries. So it's kind of an interesting mix of what we are able to do.
No, I was just thinking that, traditionally in entrepreneurship, we teach people go out and search for opportunities and then come back and build solutions. Now, here is a approach that 3M mastered, which says, here are some nice technology solutions. Now, let's go look for problems.
A lot of 3M in the old, I guess that's been part of the reason why a lot of people stay in 3M. You have the opportunity to build businesses and develop by either creating new solutions or mixing and matching solutions. So each of our products has a mix of all these 51 elements that I talked about.
Just curious. I mean, I know in chemistry we came with the periodic table over a period from trying to fix the numbers. But how did you arrive at 51?
Well, they're 51 today. They keep increasing. They used 38 when I joined the company.
Oh, wow.
So they keep 3M, and this is a credit to the research and R&D teams. Really, they are the people. The corporate research teams are the people who have created either technology platforms. So we don't create technology. We like to create technology platforms so that the platform can be used across multiple industries, multiple applications. Otherwise, you're left with one technology for one particular application, and then it's the commercialization benefits become far lesser. But if you create a platform and you can use it across many applications, then you get a lot of benefits from a commercial standpoint.
So I think as a company, you encourage individuals to take these technologies, go out, look for problems, build businesses. So I know the 3M has been extremely famous for the 15% rule, and then which has actually inspired several companies, including Google, to come up with free time and so many others. So when I spoke about this to some small business owners and typical Indian companies in the mid-size, many of the managers were very worried that if I gave so much free time to my people, I mean, how do I even know what they're doing? And and it led to other discussions. But I'm just curious how a company of this scale has been able to sustain some of these practices over time.
I don't think the 15% rule is hard and fast anymore. Probably it used to when it first started, right? It was more directional, saying spend 15% time on doing things. I think if you go back to maybe 70s, 80s, it was more a directional process. No one clocked it and said 15% time. I'm relaxing now. It's more the culture behind it, right? And now it's become a cultural context. It's no longer a 15% rule. It's become a mythical rule even for people in 3M. So it's more a culture of creativity, collaboration, letting people ideate, but at the same time, making sure there's a very robust process of which ones to take forward. Okay, so we've had to learn that as the company grows. I think that's what's happened. When the company is much smaller, you can do a lot of flexibility around this, around the ideation process, right? What we've tried to do now is, and what the company has done, I think, successfully, is that you've created flexibility around ideation, but you've made more robust commercialization processes because you can't commercialize everything.
Yeah.
Let's say, $500,000 product line, which may have been very valuable for the company when the company was much smaller, is no longer as valuable for this company when it's bigger.
Yeah.
So you have to then create guidelines, guardrails, how you commercialize.
Okay.
And that's where a very robust new product introduction system comes into place. So I can only advise you that when company is small, I think creating that culture, whether it's 5, 10, 20 or 30% or whatever, it's not important. I think it's creating the culture of are people given the freedom to ideate. That becomes very critical.
Okay.
When the company starts becoming a certain scale, then having a more robust commercialization process starts becoming to be more necessary.
Okay. A very related question. So, as a manager, you have a team and you want to allow them to ideate, come up with ideas and all that. How do you contain yourself? Because as managers, you're trained to optimize, build efficiency, and so on. But the creativity process requires inefficiency, slack, and so it's a sort of a paradox in the head of the manager, at least. So, when you're leading large teams, and on one side you have to allow this creativity. So slack, inefficiency, etc. And on the other side, you want, efficiency, profitability, and so on. How did you balance this, and how does it work?
So I struggled a lot, I think, especially in the early years of my career. Then I finally figured it doesn't make any sense because as a manager, you're supposed to be looking at today, but you also got to look at tomorrow. You can't look at only today.
Yeah.
Because if you only look at today, then tomorrow will never come. If you look at tomorrow, today is gone. You will not survive to see tomorrow. So you have to devote certain amount of energy strategically to today, meaning doing tasks today, doing things which are valuable for today, which means selling products that are already commercialized today. Because ultimately you're a business organization. You have to live for today too. You have to prove this quarter's results, right? And keeping aside a certain amount of time, effort, and budgets that you can afford for the tomorrow. Now, how much you can afford, it varies based on how well you're doing in today. So the more you can carve out from today, the better you do today, the more you can afford for tomorrow.
Okay.
So I think this, and you have to keep adjusting it. It's not like a standard fixed thing. Those goals may have to be adjusted on a regular, maybe on a quarterly basis.
Oh, okay.
So projects that are ongoing may have to be slowed down or, put on the back bencher sometime. Also, you will find that many projects need to be shelved. And that's probably the most difficult thing I found in my career.
What do you mean by shelved?
Projects that have been ongoing for a long time, haven't seen the light of commercialization, become the baby child of that particular project team, right? Nobody wants to take the tough decision of throwing the child out.
Okay.
And that's not an easy thing to do, of course, because you have invested your time, your money. It's emotional. The money is companies, but the effort and time is the individual teams.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of emotional involvement in that process. But at some stage, you would realize it doesn't make sense.
True.
The team can never take that decision. That decision has been taken by somebody who has not been emotionally involved in the project.
Okay.
Who can take I would say, an unbiased view or a more balanced view.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure the oversight of that project work, the pipeline of projects is done by somebody who's not involved in the
involved. Okay.
Because when you disconnect that emotional tie, the other person can take a non-emotional decision. Saying, do these 4, stop these 5 or 6 or whatever it is. That's a very tough thing to do. It's not easy. People will keep coming and telling you why it's so good, has to happen, they put so much effort in it, which is all true. But you have to take those tough calls.
And how do you explain it to the person who's most emotionally wedded to not quit? Because nowadays we've heard people where key projects have been stopped, people immediately leave, go out, start up and things like that. How do you convince these people to stay? I mean,
you can't. Well, if the person is such a faith believer and he wants to start the same project outside the company, you probably can't stop the person from leaving, right? But I think you can only do your best in terms of using facts, data, telling the person unemotionally look at the information that you have in front of you. And that's why having an unbiased person coming in who has not been involved in any of those projects, who at least they have the faith that person is taking unbiased decision, becomes critical.
Okay.
Are you going to be able to convince everybody? I don't think so, but most of the time you can.
What are some of the non-work things you've done to build a strong faith in your teams? Anything that has worked for you?
Non-work team. I think a lot of team building outside. Um, you're starting a project or a new assignment. You have to build trust in the team first.
Yeah.
And sometimes people avoid that trust piece of it and they go straight into the assignment or project.
Oh.
In my personal view, very often these projects fail because the team doesn't trust each other. So you have to, and then you start trying to build trust, and it's too late. So I think spending a lot of time, even offsite meetings, or having discussions, having behavioral kind of interventions, or say getting to know each other.
Okay.
Just as human beings, as people, spending time outside the office. I think building the trust equation becomes very important.
Okay.
Because that cuts down your cycle time of the actual work dramatically. But people are more aligned, people are more consistent. They're not second guessing each other in the process. So building a guiding coalition or building a team of trust, a circle of trust, if you want to call it, that is very, very important.
Okay. That's interesting.
And people don't spend enough time on that experience.
Okay. We've always, when the moment we talk about 3M, the first thing that comes to mind is the post-it note. And that's been like one of the stories that goes around all the time, Art Fry and etc.
You forgot the person who invented the adhesive. It wasn't Art Fry.
Art Fry is the one who...
Dr. Silva.
Dr. Silva, yeah. So Art Fry became more taking it around, but as with Dr. Silva. So can you tell us another story that we can carry from 3M? Something similar that you think is really interesting, but...
I told you about the glass bubble story.
Of course.
For example, you can. So I think there are many such applications.
Okay.
Recently, let me continue the glass bubble story since I talked about it. Hydrogen is becoming a big opportunity in the world.
Yeah.
So we worked a lot with a large company. I'm telling you because it's public knowledge now.
Yeah.
Hydrogen storage needs cryogenic tanks. The cryogenic tanks need insulation. One of the applications they're using is filling tons of glass bubbles inside cryogenic tanks to provide insulation for hydrogen storage.
Oh, wow.
So you can keep finding applications. Ultimately, a glass bubble is something that's going to give you insulation and lightweight property. So theoretically, if you take that basic premise, then of course you got to modify the product, etc. But you can use that and just extrapolate to many things that you can think of.
Yeah.
So these stories continue. It's like a day every day. 3M files, I don't know, 6,000-7,000 patents a year. So it's not something which is new. It's always happening.
Okay. So what are some of the things you did, especially when you became head of regions and especially new regions like in Asia, and where you've been building this over the years, over the past few decades, to sustain that culture? As you said, it's not about rules. It's not about 15%. It's not about, so much percentage of revenue coming from new products. Those were not important, but that spirit behind those numbers, which was more important. So are there any particular interventions that the organization does to sustain this kind of cultural...
I think supporting the teams on the ground in many different ways. It could be customer visits, making sure you're making the high-level connections that enable customers to enable our teams to do work with their customers better. So that becomes one of your jobs, is how do you make the high-level connections? Not because you're going to be adding value to that particular project per se, but you're going to add value from the fact that that project has been blessed by the highest customer person, and therefore the teams get better traction from the customer teams. Okay, so that visibility is important for the team. So you need to get out of your office and do that. The second thing is we have all these customer technical centers in all the larger countries that we operate in. Getting in the customer teams in there, doing customer journey mappings if required, doing getting the right kind of customer voices, Again, making sure that you, even if you're in management, are there showing the people that this is something that you value becomes very important. Then we have a lot of awards and rewards institutionalized within the R&D community, um, which encourage projects, innovations, failures, even reward failures, for example. So you institutionalize various systems to make sure that people are encouraged to try new things. You don't need to specify 15% rule.
Yeah.
Right? You could have a simple award saying, a technical leader of the month or the quarter. That could be a project that failed. It doesn't have to be a project that was successful.
Wow.
The person really worked hard, but it didn't work out for whatever reason. And sometimes the reason may not be a technology reason. It could be a purely commercial reason, or it could be a marketing issue, or it could be some. But encouraging the R&D teams, encouraging the marketing teams to bring in the voice of customers, encouraging the application development engineers to keep finding new opportunities for, rewarding them for the number of new applications that they have created this month or this quarter or this year. Various things you can institute to make sure that that culture remains.
Okay. I mean, since you bring this idea of failure, and of course, with so much of innovation and creativity activities going on, I'm sure there's a large battery of failures you've seen. So, any particular examples where you thought this is going to work, but as an organization, you just
I guess the many. I don't think I should be talking about
them. Specifics. Okay.
But the one that you mentioned on post-it notes is a prime example. Since it's common public knowledge. Dr. Silver did develop an adhesive that was not strong enough, and it was lying around the lab. And Art Fry used it in his book, Hymns, and it became a success. So that's an area which was a failure but worked out well in the future.
So these are like, so whenever something doesn't work, it's still parked somewhere so people can go back, pick it up.
So there's a corporate research lab, which is a depository. It's across. So the corporate research lab has technology that belongs to all the divisions of the company. It doesn't belong to any one division. Then there are division labs. The division labs can, they work with corporate research labs, and we have access to that. And that access is also to all the application development engineers in the world. So all the ADs in the world have access to that technology.
Wow.
Okay. So think of this: if I'm a salesperson in 3M, and I'm going to talk to a customer. In my country, maybe there's only 50 people in application development. But I don't go with that mindset that I have 50 people. I go with that mindset that I have 8,000 people in the world who can help me find a solution.
Wow.
So that gives a lot of, I would say, a confidence not only me, but to the customer too. Because we're in so many different geographies, countries. The customer gets I would say the customer gets confidence that this is, working with this organization is going to give me some good results because they can support me in various ways. So sometimes that country may not have that level of expertise, because many of our countries have different levels of expertise based on the kinds of applications. But if you go with that confidence that you can, and we don't do it for all the customers because we can't. I mean, it's not practical to do it. And it's not. That's where the commercialization process becomes. How do you prioritize?
Okay.
So in a company like 3M, the prioritization becomes extremely important in everything.
Okay.
Because there's number of products, number of customers, number of market segments. You have to keep prioritizing. So one of my, pieces of advice to anybody joining 3M anyway is, it's not about prioritization. It's about what you will not do. Everybody tells you these 3 things I will do, but they'll continue doing the other 10. So prioritization becomes, what will you stop? Not what will you do.
No.
And that becomes even very much more relevant in a company like 3M's.
Okay. Because of the scope of
the just spread of products, technologies, geographies, customers. So I think it's not easy, but that's the constant effort on whether it's portfolio optimization or it's customer optimization or channel optimization or it's geographic optimization. It's a constant effort for the company to be more efficient.
Okay. Quick advice to companies or organizations that are trying to become more innovative. So they've been like, they found an opportunity, the founder found something, they built it, they become a reasonably large size organization. And then now they're like, they want to come up with more products, they want to come up with more new ideas. Where should they start? I mean, they're not really. How should that culture be set into motion? Any good starting point? Any 2-3 things they can start with?
I think they should think of technology, not technology in one application. I talked about technology platforms. So they start thinking in terms of platforms versus a technology for one application.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest way to start.
Okay. Cool.
It's difficult to start developing 10 new technologies.
Yeah.
Right? But if you have some core strengths in one particular area, can you use that and think of that as a platform that with some extensions that can be used across multiple industries? But that's if your business model is focused on being a technology engine, is a business model. If the company's business model is focused on a particular customer segment, then you have to find what's relevant for that customer segment.
On that customer segment.
I think it's a business model of the company that should determine that.
Okay. And I'm just shifting gears here because the whole world is talking about AI and this advent of LLMs. At least in education, we feel the heat because our students now find it so easy to solve cases, submit assignments, and so on and so forth. And as a school, we've kind of taken a different path. We've allowed them to use it because we think it's important to embrace it, but learn how to use it. But we also have questions. For example, in creative functions, in innovation, creativity, how much do you think AI is going to play a role? Is it already playing a role?
It's already playing a role. It has been for some time, I guess. I think what is happening dramatically different now is obviously the LLMs have come through. Computational power is dramatically increased.
Yeah.
So those two things coming together is going to make the dramatic change. So if you look at things like material science, there are not too many new materials the world has found. But in the next 10, 15 years, you will find many new materials coming up.
Okay.
And the reason for that could be that using artificial intelligence, using computational power, you can do a lot of design of experiments offline. So think of a lab where chemists are sitting together and mixing and matching something, and it's going to take and there are 10,000 research papers in the world, and no single human being has that kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
Now a machine can put all that together, and instead of doing research for the next 5 years, you can actually crash the research to 1 month.
Wow.
And say test out these 3 combinations of products.
Okay.
You will find new materials coming up in the world.
Wow.
Which is very exciting.
Yeah.
In fact, you're already seeing that. I was reading just yesterday in the paper about cancer research. In the medical field, existing medical medicines, the protocol changes the protocol treatments. In terms of what dosage, when to give and how to give, etc. That itself is starting to give a lot of benefits for cancer patient treatments.
Okay.
And that's being done through an AI model.
Okay.
I forget the name of the doctor, but just I think yesterday or day before there was a news article.
Wow.
So AI is already being used, and it can speed up the design of experiments that we were doing earlier.
Yeah.
It can bring together, millions of pages of research material in one location, churn them out, crunch the data, find out the best optimal combinations of things.
Okay.
That can be a game changer.
Yeah. No, so
in many fields,
yeah.
In the field of research for sure, in the field of education, of course, and also in the field of medicine, which I think is starting to happen as we speak.
Yeah.
Some forms of AI have already being used.
Yeah.
But I think AI with computational power and language learning models, generative AI, I think that is going to be the game changer.
Is the game changer.
But the computational power is required, and that was also not there earlier.
Yeah.
So you need that kind of computing power.
Okay. But how do you think
the process?
Yeah. No, I'm just curious.
I'm just giving you an example. I was heading global strategy for 3M in the US, and we were doing some predictive data modeling. I had a bunch of very bright people ask a few questions, saying, we have so much data in 3M company, in the sense that we have all these countries, we have all these product lines. Why can't we use this to do some predictive modeling? So I started doing some stuff. We had to, I'm talking about 15 years ago, we had to bring the entire network of 3M computers, and there were 20,000 employees in that this thing, to get one simple answer. And the answer would take 48 to 36, 72 hours. But we had to run it in the weekend when nobody was there, and after 72 hours, you would get an answer. You can do that today in 1 minute.
Wow.
So you can you can put a lot of data in. You can obviously get junk out of it.
Yeah.
But to analyze the information and even get information back, what was taking days takes
minutes.
Minutes.
And as a senior leader, I mean, as managers in non-analytics domains, I mean, people who are not trained in analytics, how much of this AI analytics should a person know? Because there seems to be this whole sort of FOMO thing, I don't want to miss out. And there's also scare that, if you don't get into analytics, you don't pick up analytics, you're going to be outdated, etc. But
well, for your students today, I think they better know because they're not, they're starting their careers.
Yeah.
I think for a senior leader, it's adequate. First, we have to learn. There's no question about it.
Okay.
Right? I think pretending it doesn't exist is a bad idea. We have to learn what it is. We must learn the applications. We must start thinking what are the applications. The problem you're going to have is the people who have decision-making power, who are the senior leaders, don't understand this. The people who understand this are the younger lot.
Yeah.
So I think the onus is on the senior leaders to get reverse mentoring done from the younger people and listen and learn from them.
Okay.
Because this is an area of expertise where the younger lot are much smarter.
Yeah.
Right? And we have no experience in that. So if we have to put an ego aside and listen and learn to the younger lot. Otherwise, the people who make decisions will not know, will not be making the right decisions.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, like a lot of the products that 3M makes are in the real world. I mean, so you see them in the real world. How much do you think all this whole thing of smart technologies, you see them already going into a lot of these products, or you think that's a trend that's going to take off? Or
so 3M is a material science company. We don't make many end products. So, for example, if you drive a car and you have a heads-up display, right? You have a heads-up display in your car. 3M makes films that enable the heads-up display. Right? So, we would be working with the assembler of the heads-up display.
Okay.
First with the OEM to specify the product, then with the assembler module, there's a module manufacturer who makes the heads-up display, maybe a sub-assembly, whatever. It's a big supply chain typically. And we would work with them to optimize the light. We would manage light. So our technology will be light management. We have light management films. We will never make the heads-up display.
Okay.
Now, the way we would use smart technology would be, or maybe would be in optimized design for those films.
Okay.
We would use probably artificial intelligence or whatever to create different. The films are not flat. Look like a film, but they're managing light, so there'll be small louvers inside it. Maybe changing the angle of louvers and trying to figure out what angle would be best. Now, if you were doing that in the old way over many weeks of trials in the lab, creating samples, creating one more sample, and taking weeks of sample production, we can optimize that, crunch that through AI, and do that design work. So that time you can crunch, and you can also crunch, optimize the cost. Where you're not creating 30-40 samples or doing trials. You can do 2 samples of trials. Because through AI, we have optimized what should be the design angles of the films.
Absolutely.
Or the louvers inside the film to optimize the light we want to do. So think of it from that point.
You mentioned about reverse mentoring, and I mean, this is something that's spoken about a lot. You've seen it work.
It works. I've done it many times.
Oh, okay.
It works because there are many things we don't know, right?
Yeah.
Especially in an organization. If you go to a new organization, you hear things from your management team who tell you only what they want to tell you. So it's good to get reverse mentoring because the younger people will tell you a lot more.
Yeah.
It's not easy in the beginning because the person is obviously hesitant to tell you everything. So it's good to do reverse mentoring with a group.
Oh,
okay. There are 3 or 4 people in the reverse mentoring team because they don't feel isolated. Because there's hierarchy in an organization, and they are not comfortable just talking to you.
Okay.
So it takes time to build trust, but definitely works.
Okay. It's an interesting nuance because we've always heard of reverse mentoring, and it's always come across as one-to-one, and that's a little bit of a power difference. So
yeah, I found that. So it depends on the person. So that's why I've tried both. I find it, it depends how much trust you're able to build. with that individual person.
Okay.
But I think it's just easier if they don't know you. It's easier to start with a group of reverse 3 at least, who then have some comfort amongst each other and are able to talk to you.
Yeah.
And also, you can't do this in an office environment.
Oh, okay.
I think when you do it in, like you're sitting in, let's say I'm a managing director, I'm sitting in my cabin, just the power play of that whole thing is bad dynamics.
Okay.
So can you get out of the office environment, go for a coffee, and just outside the office? It makes people are more relaxed.
Yeah.
So you have to create that environment around which people are able to give you that kind of feedback.
Feedback.
I don't have the fear of
Yeah.
giving that feedback.
Yeah.
There's a fear factor.
Yes, absolutely.
So-
And should this be bounded? I mean, in terms of learning, what is work like? For example, deciding you want to learn this from
So
the.
I had done it. I started doing it myself. Then I encouraged. I didn't ask anyone to do it forcefully because I think it's a lot of fear in it. But I did encourage my teams to do reverse mentoring, and I found at least 50-60% of people did take it up. My direct reports.
Oh, okay.
So you can only encourage people. I don't think you can force people to do this, because if the person who's getting mentored, in this case the senior person, is not interested, there's no sense.
Yeah. And is it like you kind of identify what you want to get mentored on, or is it more like just getting to know what's happening? Which works better? I mean, is it?
I think it depends what your motive is, right? So like we talked about AI, that's a very definitive, focused area.
Yeah.
You want to learn about what AI is and how it can be used and ideas and applications in the company.
Yeah.
That's a very focused discussion. And people will speak up in that space much more easily.
Okay.
When it's a generic discussion on how is the company doing, how you can't ask how your supervisors are doing, but in general, what do you think of the culture of the company? What do you think we should be doing to encourage and motivate the employees? And those kinds of slightly touchy-feely subjects, it's better to do in a group in the beginning, till you are able to build a certain amount of trust. But that's more information gathering, getting the pulse of the organization. So that's a different reason why you're doing it. If it's a focused thing like AI, then it's very simple.
You know what you're getting to. And so how does one, as a young student, just getting into the world, first 2-3 years of work, how do they develop this mindset? What are 2-3 things that they can do in terms of practices to keep themselves, get themselves ready to maintain this innovativeness, this mindset for growth? What are 2-3 tips that you could offer?
I think being curious for once. Don't lose your curiosity.
Okay.
I think the most important learning comes from if you're curious about things. And be ready to learn from everybody. Sometimes, you may not like a supervisor. You may not like your boss. And most people tune off, saying person is useless and they learn nothing. But you can learn from everybody. You can learn from you go on the roadside and there's a cycle puncture repair guy who is repairing cycles, but also being quite creative and innovative by selling, nariyal pani or selling biscuits and chai and all that, while he's fixing your cycle tire.
Yeah.
But he's an entrepreneur. He's doing something creative.
Yeah.
So you can learn from everybody. So I think having that mindset of learning from everybody, worst case, learn what you should not do. Maybe you don't like somebody, right? And you don't like what he's doing. At least learn that this is what you should not do to somebody else.
Okay. In today's business school landscape, there's a lot of focus on, applying to jobs based on CTC and, what am I getting? And there's a lot of discussion about that. What would be your suggestion to these kids to look at this differently? Should they?
I can suggest, but there's actually not to change the thing.
So we keep on trying. We're optimists.
No, it's difficult. I mean, let's face it. When I left B school, did I think of anything other than CTC? And the answer is, of course, not. So it's difficult. It's easy to give gyan much later, but I think what I can suggest is, one, of course, it is important to look at the compensation. We can't discount it. True. And it's foolish to say forget about it.
Yeah.
But if you're joining an organization, I think of your learning opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that's an important consideration, along with the CTC as an important thing too. I'm not suggesting it's not important, but what is your learning opportunity? Are you going to learn something that you thought you would like to learn?
Yeah.
Are you joining only for CTC? It's a bad idea. So CTC is one parameter. But then are you joining that organization to learn or do something that you would like to do, that's of interest to you? I think to do work that is uninteresting to you is really sad.
Yeah. Okay.
So you should really try and do something that you think you will find some interest in. And hopefully every student who joined a business school has that much intelligence to figure that out. Right?
Yeah.
You don't want to spend your life doing something you're not interested in.
Yeah.
Or at least the next 2-3 years of your, because work takes up a large part of your initial, especially initial career in terms of time. So you have to be interested. You have to be wanting to go back to office on Monday morning. I find a lot of young people these days, especially post-COVID, are not interested. They're just doing it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
You can carry on, but maybe the organization will catch you or not catch you. But end of the day, are you as a human being learning something?
Yeah.
Are you being motivated by it? And if that's not the case, then CTC should not be the consideration.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned the word Gyan, I'm now curious. Can you give a piece of Gyan to our students?
Piece of Gyan. I just did. Find the learning opportunity. Be curious.
No, that's truly Gyan. Thank you.